You see, it was not the letters carved on the victim's forehead or the equipment that was used to murder them that made the Christmas bell killer very gruesome. It was the effort he put in place to arrange the body, making sure they were placed in relaxed positions. It was as if he needed each of his victims to be comfortable after suffering greatly before death. He would place them in a sitting position, eyes closed with a picture-perfect smile. Now, imagine a corpse smiling. The Christmas bell killer, according to what the world called him, started his adventure in early 2010. All his victims were girls, aged between 14 and 18 years old. As far as the whole world knows, I am the only living victim who survived an encounter with him. It was in the year 2011, a week to Christmas, and 3 months to my 15-year birthday. I remember feeling overwhelmed by the hustle and effort of my mom to make the Christmas celebration a remarkable one. She had gotten us beautiful dresses and matching shoes. Our house was flagged with Christmas decorations of red and white as we awaited the arrival of my father, who has been off for mandatory service for a year. That evening, I was sent to get some fruit for my mom, who was cooking dinner. Sarah, my younger sister, was watching her cartoon in her room. As I strolled back home after getting the oranges and watermelon, I noticed a red Toyota driving slowly behind me. The street was empty, which was usual since we lived in a quiet estate, on the outskirts of town. Increasing my pace on the very lonely road, I noticed the car also increased its speed. Instinct kicked in, and I stopped, waiting for the car to drive past. But as I stood fumbling with the nylon bag my mom had given me, I heard the engine cut, and a man step out of the driver's seat. "Jane!" he called. I watched him advance while I tried to place the face. He was short and slightly muscular, with his hands in his pocket and a cap cloaking his face in the darkness. How did he know my name? Who was he? But there was nothing. No memories of ever having an encounter with him. "Your mom told me to get you," he smiled. Uneasiness grew in my chest as he drew closer. I knew my mom would never ask a stranger to pick me up. Besides, I was only a few minutes' walk away from home. "Who are you?" "I am your mom's friend." He smiled, a comfortable stretch on his face. "I am sorry. I do not know you, and you are not my mother's friend." I turned to leave, but that was the biggest mistake I made, because as I did, I felt the impact of a metal on my head. Everything went blank instantly. I do not know how many hours I spent in my realm of unconsciousness, but as I woke up, I discovered I was bound to a chair, blindfolded, with a ball of cloth stuffed into my mouth. I tried to recall everything that happened and where I was, but the last thing I remembered was something hard being slammed to my head, and a man. That man. I tried to scream, but it was impossible. So instead, I tried to listen, to hear for sounds, any sound, but there was nothing. Not a footstep, not a sigh to induct life. Although I was certain I wasn't alone, I could feel it in the thick, heavy air. Someone or something was out there. I tried to move, but the rope around my ankles was just too tight, and the cloth in my mouth made breathing difficult. I struggled to push it off with my tongue as tears began to run lines down my cheeks. It was at that very moment that I heard it. Footsteps. The manly shuffle of feet as he dragged himself across the floor. Instantly, the cloth was removed from my mouth, and the blindfold torn away. I blinked, welcoming the refreshing light of the moon. "Jane." The voice came from behind, smooth and low, with an edge of maturity. He called my name as if he knew me. I tried to turn to see him, but it was impossible. "Did I frighten you, honey? Please let me go," I whispered, as pains radiated around my body. "Jane, Jane." He paused. It was as if he was mesmerized by my name. I began to shiver, feeling the sudden need to use the restroom. "My lovely Jane, You are part of the puzzle." He stepped out of the shadows, his face calm with an angelic kindness as he stood before me. I remember his innocent smile as he took off his cap. His eyes were blue, like a lake that had seen centuries of the passing time. "Now I need you to see something special. A gift. You can call it that if you want." He moved behind me. It was at that moment I realized I was tied to a wheelchair. He pushed me into the darkness. Sobs of anguish choked in my chest. "Please, I want to go home." He started to whistle. The sound echoed into thousands of pieces, and the wheelchair shook carelessly. "Please, mister." My plea fell on deaf ears. He turned the wheelchair to the right. Just then, a quick flash of the moon reflected into the darkness through a broken wall. I caught a glimpse of where we were, in a tunnel. There was no tunnel in the estate where we lived. I shivered, embracing the cold as fear gripped my chest. I felt my heart skip a beat. Where was this man taking me to? What did he want? Was he going to kill me? My eyes began to fill with tears again. At that age, I didn't know who my captor was. I had no idea of the missing girl's poster hanging in the station. I never watched the news or listened to the radio. He stopped suddenly, with the wheelchair facing what seemed to be a dark dead end. That was when I perceived it. The smell of rotten flesh, trembling in my position. I looked around, trying to find the source of the stench, but being tied limited my movement. My captor walked to the dead end and a door creaked. "Welcome home," he whispered. His breath brushed my cold cheeks. He pushed the wheelchair towards the open door, where the foul smell grew stronger. As we moved in, the room lightened up, not fully, but enough to show a girl in a sitting position, holding a book. I exhaled. It was a breath of relief that was cut short. Once I noticed the drop of fresh blood on the floor and the letter C carved boldly on her forehead. I screamed. My lungs were on the verge of bursting as I tried to free myself, to run, but the ropes around my legs and waist held me firmly. His hands clasped my lips, turning my scream into useless muffled sound. With his other hand, he pulled out a sharp object. The knife glowed in the room like a trophy. He pointed it at the dead body. Sweat dripped from my forehead as I followed the motion of his knife, counting the bodies in the room. 7 girls in total, all with letters on their foreheads, sitting and smiling. The horror reality hit hard. It was like a punch in the face. I was going to die. Shaking my head, I started to sob. He let go, smiling. Tears ran like ropes on his face as he looked at them, his work. "Don't worry, you will be next," he said calmly. The Christmas bell killer walked away from me and pulled open a large freezer. He dragged out another body while I watched with parted lips and swollen eyes. My thoughts wandered to my mom. I wasn't the best daughter to her. I knew I had caused her a lot of pain recently. And my sister? "I have been watching you," he said, laying the body on the floor and placing a chair next to the reading body. "You never knew. Same with these girls." He placed her slowly and carefully on the chair. Shifting frozen hair from her face, he kissed her forehead, ready to carve on her skin. That was when we heard the sound of sirens. At first, I thought my ears were playing games, but when he looked up with panic, I knew it was true. "No. How did they find us?" he asked, pacing from left to right. He turned sharply. "It was you." No, you." The veins on his red face were like branches of a tree. He advanced quickly with the knife pointed at me. That was the last thing I remembered. I woke up in a hospital bed, with my mom sitting next to me. You see, it has been 5 years since my encounter with the Christmas bell killer. He was caught and sentenced to life imprisonment. Ever since then, I have lived in fear and hated the Christmas holiday. But today, my fear grew to another height. At exactly 8 p.m., a prison break was announced on television. A riot led by a group of prisoners had resulted in the prison break. According to the newscaster, almost all the escapees have been caught, except inmate 334. It's 2 damn weeks to Christmas, and inmate 334 is the well-known Christmas bell killer.